Hello and welcome to the Gitex Tech Waves podcast, bringing you the latest trends and innovations in the shifting tides of tech worldwide. I'm Georgia Tolley, and today we're welcoming into our studio Richard Doyle. Now, he's Regional Vice President for the Middle East region for Salesforce, and they are a leading cloud-based software company, one of the world's most popular providers of both services and solutions for everything from marketing automation. They do analytics, they do application development, and of course, customer service. Salesforce is once again making a presence at Gitex Global 2024, the world's largest tech show, taking place from the 14th to the 18th of October at the Dubai World Trade Center, right here in the UAE. And Richard's been leading and supporting Salesforce's regional strategy, also their operations for over a decade now, expanding their extensive portfolio of solutions to new markets. Richard, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us in the Gitex Tech Waves podcast studio.
Great. Thanks very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here, Georgia.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the Gitex Tech Waves podcast. Really fantastic to have you here in our studio. Let's start by talking trends, because Salesforce's software really is the backbone of so many companies. That means you really have your finger on the pulse across so many different industries. So what are the most significant tech trends that you are seeing right now?
Well, Georgia, it's all about data and AI, as I'm sure you'll see at the moment, all the buzzwords. But what does that actually mean? So to give you an example, let's take a retailer. So a large retailer will have data from their website, they'll have data from their mobile device, from their e-commerce, they might have data in their warehouse, they might have data in a last mile delivery center. And traditionally what's been happening is the data is there, but there's not really any tools to activate that data, to do anything with that data. And that's why AI is so important. Data is really the fuel for AI. And what you can do with that AI then is really enhance the way that you're able to talk to your customers. Maybe to illustrate that, let me give you an example. So we work with Gucci. I'm sure the audience will be very familiar with the brand. Now, Gucci had a set of, not challenges, but they'd had a program. What they wanted to do was take all of the in-store experience that they had in a traditional Gucci store, but they wanted to replicate that within their service center. Now, obviously, these people don't work on the shop floor, so they don't have that tonality of the Gucci brand. So what they did was they took all of their data points, they took all of their Gucci brand, their knowledge, and they ingested that with Salesforce into a large language model, which would actually augment the staff. So the way this works is that when somebody calls in to the call center, the agent has all the information, what was their purchases. Georgia likes this particular handbag. She's been on our website. She's looked at this. But also, when you type in, if you're on a chat or from your voice, whatever tonality that you use, the agent is prompted how you should respond to Georgia to reflect the Gucci brand, but also in my own agent's tone. I can also edit it to give a little bit of my flavor. So the result is a level being raised. So every agent in the call center is now almost like their top, most experienced agent that's available. And the results are outstanding. They've managed to increase their revenue by 30%. So it's been a hugely successful program. And there's many more that are in flight like this.
Is it difficult for companies to manage that type of data? Are you going to have to introduce a whole load of new software, different devices to store that type of data as well?
Well, not so much to store the data, but the reality is that many companies still are sitting on dirty data, something that's, it's been polluted over time. And it's really important that you get that clean, because if you don't have clean data, the results are not going to be right. When the AI engine is trying to learn, it's learning off something that's not quite right. But in terms of, also you have to consider data privacy. This is one of the big concerns. You also have to think about the employees in your own company. How are they going to access the data? Who should access the data? So personal information, you don't want every agent in the world to see your credit card details, your Emirates ID. And that's why it's important to use a trusted software vendor who knows how to handle this, who knows how to set it up in a way that people only see the information that they're entitled to and that they should do. Yes,
because when you mentioned that very good example of what Gucci does, on one level, I'm like, great, I'm getting a personalized service. I'm not wasting any time. But then on another level, I'm like, oh, is it creepy that they know I only like black trousers and black handbags and that I'd never buy orange?
Exactly. And you can imagine even taking it a step further, like if we have all this details, how easily it might be if somebody got access to it to do some damage, take your identity, or even worse, as a company, what happens if there's a data breach and all of that data goes? That's why it's so important to use an enterprise software that has these security controls in place, not only to protect your customers' data, but also to protect how people interact with it internally in the organization.
You guys are a very global company. Now, when you're introducing these software solutions, you must have to vary what you're providing according to the various regulations, according to which country you're operating in, because I think these data regulation laws can change quite dramatically depending where you are.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we had some experience with that in Europe a few years ago when GDPR came out, and it was a big kind of focus to make sure everything was compliant. But that trend started to follow everywhere else. And, recently in UAE, there's data privacy laws as well. And that was one of the big driving forces actually for Salesforce to decide to ensure that our service is hosted here within the UAE to meet those regulations.
Was that a big shift for you, or was it something that you'd already done in other countries? So
well, luckily, we'd already done it. We'd had the experience before. So when it came to the UAE, it was relatively easy. We partner with AWS, so Trusted Cloud Platform. So now all the service for Salesforce is delivered within the UAE on AWS.
Are the companies that come to you for your solutions aware of this, or are you having to educate them as you go?
Well, certain industries, it's not a huge concern. The data privacy laws generally affect governments, financial institutions, healthcare institutions. So over the last few months, we've begun a bit of an education program where we're able to talk to customers and tell them a little bit more about our recent developments. Of course, there are a lot of Salesforce fans out there. So previously, some companies that couldn't use us now are delighted that they can, and we're working with those, and they're our pioneers.
Okay, so I'm going to quote your CEO back to you. Mark Benioff recently described artificial intelligence as the most important technology of any lifetime, and he described it as a human right. Now, we've kind of been playing AI bingo on the Gitex Tech Waves podcast, and as one of our guests, you've actually mentioned it probably the earliest in the interview. Like, you literally mentioned it in your first answer. So, clearly AI is very important to you guys. Are we about to see an enormous step change in the way in which we analyze data? Is it imminent?
Well, I think that there's how data is management, but even going back to the quote from Mark Benioff in the context of the interview, he mentioned also his own personal situation where he was getting health checks done, a CT scan on his heart. So you can imagine traditionally you go to get these CT scans done, you go to your doctor tells you, yes, it's okay, no, it's not. But you're relying on that particular doctor's skill. Now, AI as a human right, it really means we're making it a democratization of all of this technology, but also of the skills of other human beings. So you can imagine now how AI is applied in this scenario. Let's say, for example, that clinic is able to compare that particular scan with all of the other scans in a country, or all, maybe even in a segment of population of a world, which have been reviewed by the top cardiologists in the world. So now you've got a layer of top cardiologists who have been scanning these things for their lifetime, helping a large language model, or an AI tool, to learn what to look out for. Now your local doctor who may have 4 or 5 years experience can tap into the wealth of knowledge of all of this other community. And it means that you have access to the best doctors in the world. That's what it means, really. This is what the AI revolution is going to mean for me and for you over the coming years.
And do your systems, your solutions aid in that because I've been talking to you quite a lot about customer services so far. That is what you're describing there, that healthcare example is slightly different. It's slightly more profound in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, the tools that we have available today are ones that will help a broad spectrum of industries. It's really not limited to any one. There's so many use cases that you can think across the board. Now, of course, Salesforce are not the only people that are available to help with these type of projects, but we see ourselves as a little bit more unique in the way that our platform is designed, so that every person in an organization has a single view of your customer. And that's really important, because you don't want to have a fragmented experience across different departments of your business.
Okay, so let's look into your crystal ball. Sorry, it's this stage of the interview where I ask you to look forward. I mean, when it comes to customer services, how do you see that evolving over the next, I mean, I could say 5 years, but let's go for decade.
Well, I think there's two parts of it, right? So let's take an example again of what consumer AI looks like today. And I've recently listened to a podcast, Black Box. I don't know if you've heard of this one.
Of course.
Very good, yeah.
Yes.
So if you would have listened to that one, you would have remembered that there was an AI bot that was used by a lady who has some illnesses and she wasn't getting out that much. So she started off with one of these companion apps and didn't think much of it over the first few weeks, but gradually over time she's interacting and, you know, she's beginning to get a little bit hooked in the conversation. Fast forward over a couple of months and she's almost having a full-blown relationship with this AI bot, but she can't tell the difference. And if you listen to that podcast, I challenge anyone to be able to pick up that conversation was between one human and a bot. So it's indistinguishable. Now let's just take the customer care example then. So if you take that level of technology and apply it to the consumer world, let's say, for example, you're in your kitchen, your air fryer is packed up. Okay, you go onto the company's website, you go onto their chatbot. Now I'm sure everyone's experienced the infuriation with chatbots today.
Yes, we're definitely not there yet, I would say. A long way.
We're a long way to go,
Yeah.
right? And it's because they're designed. They're designed in a rigid way where, say, for example, you go, okay, well, what's your problem? I've got a problem with my air fryer. And the chatbot will come back and say, do you have a problem with your power plug, your tray, or your filter? Nope, I have a problem with my display screen. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Can you tell me, is it a problem with your tray, your power plug, or and at this stage, you're
breaking things.
You're breaking things, and you're
Yes.
about to throw your air fryer out the window.
Yes.
All right, that's changed, and you'll see that now in Gitex. We'll showcase this. So that interaction now, almost like the previous example with Black Box, that level of human intuition is there. So the agent, or not even agent, the digital agent, let's call it, which is actually a bot, is able to say, Georgia, yeah, okay, you have a problem with your screen. We don't see that too often. Is it working? No, it's not working. Have you looked at this help desk case or knowledge article? And you write back, yeah, I've done all of this. It still doesn't work. Okay, can you send me a picture of the screen, the display? So you send it in, a picture of the error code. It'll come back to you and say, Georgia, I've got bad news. Your air fryer is kaput. It's done. You're going to have to buy a new one. I'm sorry about that. But look, we'll give you a 10% discount.
So you're even going to get the colloquial language, the sort of human style.
The human style. So this is where it's almost at the level of the human intelligence and the digital intelligence. It's almost meeting each other. But it's not going to take over, but it's going to augment. So if we take it a step further, that bot might say to you, okay, well, look, here's a couple of models. You decide which model you want to buy and everything's fine. But you might say then at the end, but look, I want to pick it up in the store. That's where this agent might pass it off and say, great, well, look, I'm just going to put you in touch now with the local store and they're going to help you to pick it up. How
close are we to that now? Because you're behind the scenes already. So when I'm chatting to a bot, maybe on, I think I recently did it on the Emirates airline website, I presumed until now that was a human being, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. Now this is the thing. Now you're going to be at the stage where you can almost be indistinguishable between what is a bot, what is a digital employee, and what is a real employee. And, it's fascinating to see this in action, and it is actually quite imminent. Okay,
so how about the other trends that AI is going to influence? So there we're dealing with the large language model style scenario where, a bot is talking to me. How about maybe behind the scenes, or maybe there's another customer front-facing scenario?
Yeah, so there's things like the augmented reality, there's virtual reality. Maybe in your villa you wanted to see some new furniture, see does it fit, you can put it in and you can model it. Now these tools are kind of there at the moment, but they're not really where they can be. Or let's take your villa again. Let's say you run a maintenance company and you've got a team of engineers. You may have one senior person who's really able to fix anything. 10 people who are quite junior. Those junior people go into a villa, they come across a scenario and they go, oh, don't know how to do that. This is where the augmented reality can assist. So the more senior person can almost see what the junior engineer can see and can help them to troubleshoot it. So it's all about productivity.
I can imagine that being a very yes, a very successful scenario, actually. And thank goodness, because here in the Middle East, actually, no, let's be honest, everywhere in the world you come across handymen who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that can be quite daunting.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to bring it back to the Middle East now, back to your experience, because you've worked out here for many years, going backwards and forwards, and now obviously you've been established here for a year. You're managing the expectations of lots of small and medium-sized businesses as well as big businesses. What are the unique needs that you see from companies out here?
I don't know about unique needs as such, but I think it's in general, right? So we're working with all companies in the Middle East. I can see some levels of, okay, companies want to plow ahead, and some companies are taking a more cautious approach, where they want to make sure that the data is structured, is clean before they do anything. I mean, I guess it's more of a case of what should you do in this, what should you do to deploy AI in it? The one bit of advice, I suppose, is just be a tiny bit careful. We've talked about really good examples where everything works out well. Okay. I'll give you another example where things didn't quite work out that well.
Okay.
So, and anybody can Google this. It's a little bit humorous. So DPD is a big logistics company, and they recently had a bot, and they put AI engine on top of it. Wasn't quite tested right, I don't think. So there was a user who went on, tried to get some help. The bot came back, says, sorry, I can't help. The user says, oh, you're useless. But decided to have a little bit of fun and asked the bot, tell me a joke. And the bot came back and told him a joke. So he kept on prodding a little bit and then asked the AI bot to tell him a poem. And he wrote a poem about how bad, the bot wrote the poem about how bad DPD was and how it couldn't deliver packages and its customer service was atrocious.
Yes.
It's a funny story, but, and I'm sure it did no damage to DPD and probably got them extra advertising in the end. But, you can see that as a funny bit, but if you're not careful and you expose your data, especially to some of these models in the public web, you got to remember these have been trained on public data, and all the hate, all the bad things in the world that are on the internet. You do not want that to be your learning engine. That's why you need to work with companies that know how to do this right.
Yes. You almost don't want the large language model you're using to even know bad words or bad phrases. You want it to almost be clean. Yeah,
learning or grounding needs to be on your data, not on public data. And that again goes back to some security concerns. You don't want people taking your information, putting it into some of these public models. It's out there in the world. So there's lots of little pitfalls on it, and that's what we're kind of helping some of the local companies to think about as well.
We have quite a young population here in the UAE. Do you think this new generation of consumers are more enthusiastic, more ready to accept things like AI bots instead of human customer service?
Definitely. I mean, customers want to be served wherever they are and whatever channel that they're used to. So they're more demanding than ever, and they're not as loyal as before. So unless you give the customers exactly what they want when they want it, they're just going to change. And companies need to be ready for that.
I'm going to get slightly technical now because, of course, we all now know that these large language models, AI, requires a lot of computer power to run. And there's all sorts of conversations about, the eco-friendliness of that and the issues that we're going to have to look at on in a broad umbrella term. But as far as your approach is concerned, you must have to have access to quite a lot of cloud infrastructure in order to be able to run this software. What do you think about the infrastructure that we have here in the UAE? Is it currently adequate for what we're going to need?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously a big dependency on some of the large cloud providers. So those guys are built for this. They have the compute power, and it's a case of scale. With the scale, you can also have a more environmental friendly, kind of setup or policy. And also that means that these tools can be deployed a lot faster. You can have tools from these big cloud providers that make the development of AI apps far quicker, far easier to deploy. So it's a huge benefit for everyone. And because it's done in a collective, it means it is a little bit more or nicer to the environment, let's say.
Yes. I mean, oddly enough, I was interviewing Microsoft on this subject recently, and they raised the point that actually I think all of their cloud computing currently, they suggest, is already eco-friendly because it's they carbon offset everything already. You know, I was like, are you going to be ready? And they're like, no, we're ready. We're there already.
Yeah,
with that.
exactly. And like we partner with AWS or Salesforce policies to run a zero carbon policy. So we're very proud of that. Sustainability is one of our core values. So, you know, we only work with other providers that share those values.
And do you think we are seeing enough investment in cloud computing to encourage the growth that we're talking about here? Because it's going to arguably grow exponentially, at least considering how every single company I speak to who's exhibiting at Gitex is all about AI. We're going to need a lot of, space, a lot of bandwidth, effectively.
Yeah, I do think that's there. And I think we're probably in like the gold rush of AI at the moment. And there will be a lot of players that will fall by the wayside. And then there'll be left, a number of ones that are very, very strong. But I think there definitely is enough investment. And there's also a lot of, focus, even for the UAE government. Recently, a number of AI ministers have been appointed to different government institutions. So I think, the technology, the cloud compute power, the investment combined with the focus from the authorities, it means there's no way this isn't going to be a huge transformational shift for everybody's lives.
So I mentioned Gitex Global there. Of course, it is coming soon.
Yeah.
You will be exhibiting there. Nice big stand.
Yes.
What are you expecting from the event this year? It's the 44th edition.
Yeah, look, we're hugely excited. We've been here now locally since August. We had a big presence last year. We met some very high officials. We were very proud of it. This year we're back bigger than ever, and what we really want to do is showcase all of this cool tech that we've been talking about today. We're going to be sponsored by some of our key partners who also can help organizations in their digital transformation journey. So we're just really excited. We can't wait to be there. We can't wait to start having more conversations. This year is bigger and better than ever, and now in the environment that we're in, I'm sure it's going to be hugely successful.
Richard, thank you so much. What a fantastic interview. It's been a great pleasure to catch up with you and to learn so much about what Salesforce does. And if you are curious to learn more about Salesforce's innovations, then don't forget to check out their stand at Gitex Global 2024 from the 14th to the 18th of October at the Dubai World Trade Center. And stay tuned for more updates. And you can always register, of course, at gitex.com. Plus, subscribe and follow our event's social media at Gitex Global. I'll be seeing you there.